Excuse me. Oh, okay, great. So this is your site plan. These are all the buildings we're gonna be working on. You know, number one is just getting painted. But okay, so this is where I opened up the building, and here you can see the Visqueen, the vapor barrier, and that's what's in behind it is the Celotex, which is a cellulose fibrous material. It has no structural strength to it. It was used for a while, you know, 60s and 70s, and should have just been outlawed. Another picture showing, you know, how, you know, rough it is down in that area. This shows, this is the 1 inch of rigid insulation. You can see the nail right here. And so the nail is held off from the hard surface, the structure of the 2x framing, 1 inch. And that allows that nail to move just a little bit. But every time that nail moves a little bit, it's going to move more. And so that's why all the siding, you know, is so loose, and you can see gaps through it, and it just has allowed weather in it over the years constantly. And this is one of the reasons why. And that's why we want to get rid of the insulation. Okay, this just shows some insulation, and I didn't touch the insulation. This was the condition it was in. You know, that gap was there. I didn't touch it. And that's a heating duct that's back in there, so that air would be blowing through the siding, because there's really not a lot to stop it. And then the hot air in that duct would create condensation, but this happens to be on a slab. So there's no, if that were wood, like a subfloor below that, that would have been completely decayed. This is one of my tests. This is a probe test. And so it's just simply a screwdriver. And if it goes in more than like 1/8 of an inch, you have a problem. This is like a 3 or 4 inch. It just sunk right in. And I have lots of pictures of this. I didn't, you know, I just, you know, went through and picked out a few. There's another one. These are the chimneys, the chases, and you can see that this is just, there's boards missing. There's such bad, I know you all live here, you walk around these buildings all the time, but you know, it'd be normal not to really look too closely because it's a building, you know it, and so what's gonna change? Well, this is what happens. And the guys have been putting paint on these buildings for a long time, trying to hold them together, but I guess there just isn't a green glue or something. But you know, this, you know, there are buildings, so water, this is on a southwest face of one of those chimney chases, so water is driven right into that and goes down through the building. And so wherever it hits a horizontal area, there could be some decay. Hopefully there's not too much decay we don't know about, but you know, this is not good. And all the buildings have something like this. You know, these pictures represent all the buildings. This is just down around, I think buildings 4 or 5, where there's a depressed area coming in from the north. So even on the north side, there are just really nasty areas that you know, you keep putting paint on it, but the problem's going to be that paint is going to come off, because once wood is wet, it does not hold paint. And that's why if you have the drainage plane behind it to allow that wood to dry out once it gets wet, because it's going to get wet, then paint will adhere to it. But once that moisture gets into that wood, if it doesn't dry out, paint will not stick. You know, so your painting cycles get more and more frequent. It's just the way the physics work. This is an example. This is all decayed material here that's just been painted over. This is paint. This is like paper thin paint. You know, and again, the guys are just doing what they're supposed to do. You know, make it look as good as possible and hold together as good as it possibly can. But you can just poke this with your finger, and your finger's going to go right through that. I didn't want to build too much, so I didn't do a whole lot of that. This is a really nasty area. This is all just paper thin, and it's just the paint that's holding this together right now. But this is all decayed. It's fallen apart. It's just in horrible condition, and it would be hugely cost prohibitive to go in and try to replace each of these boards. Because just by trying to remove one board, you're gonna loosen the other boards. And again, remember, everything's being held off by an inch by that rigid insulation. And it's just going to make the situation worse, and you're still gonna have the same problem of moisture getting in and not being managed correctly. This is another example, and again, this is paper thin. You can, just touch it, and it's just gonna decay. It's gonna fall right off. The areas like this where there's an actual gap in the wood, and this, so water is driven in, snow's driven in, and it gets behind the flashing that's there, and this could be a problem. There's a reason why there's not a board there, because it got decayed and fell off. And this flashing is actually just a patch. At some point in time, someone just put it there because there's a problem, and they're just trying to make things work on the budget that they had. So, and another one where there's just a gap, and so of course water gets in there, animals get in there, insects. It's just this is things that are just not acceptable in the construction world. This is an interesting thing. All the Dennis mentioned the rain diverters that the lower units have from the decks above them. They're all done in various ways. I would suggest that there be some kind of system put in place that everybody has to use once these are taken out, because you can sort of see this one that the water is actually draining against the wall where you see the dark staining. That's all mold, okay? That's decay. And that's because the water is coming through the deck on top, hitting this drainage plane, and being pushed back into a wall. And so this is all decay, and that all has to be replaced. And so in order not to be in the same position again 10, 15 years down the road, these drainage planes have to be a little bit more thought out. This is just one of the south elevations. You can see the checking of material, the way that it's moving. You can see places where they try to use caulk, and it just is failing. Again, this is so over top of one of the bay windows, and you can see that the wood has so much stress on it that actually is cracked and split apart, and you can't fix that. That has to be replaced. And when you look up close, when you leave here today after we get done, just look closely at these buildings, and you see issues everywhere you look. Well, another protest. You did throw another one in there. And that one you sort of expect to see, because that's down really low, and that's concrete, and that's another issue, because see, what's happening is that the wood is right on the concrete. Concrete will transfer moisture, and wood like this should not be in contact with concrete. The building code requires that you use pressure treated material if you're in contact with masonry, just for this reason. That was code back when these buildings were built too. That's nothing new. But so wherever this wood, especially cedar, which is a softer wood, is in contact with concrete, it's going to just be absorbing moisture, and it's been doing it for decades. So it's all shot. There's nothing left to work with. Hopefully, though, what we'll find is that there hasn't been that much damage yet to the structure. But this is one of the problems why the board has asked me to look at this, is because there's a point, once the structure is affected by decay, that your cost for repairing gets huge. I've torn apart lots of buildings, and whenever you get into the structural issues or the structural decay, the numbers go exponentially greater. Because not only do you have to take things apart, now you have to get into the structure, take that apart, and then build it all back together again, and then finish it off. And hopefully these buildings aren't too far gone yet. From the exploration I've done, I think they're in pretty good shape still. I wasn't able to get up on the higher levels because I didn't have a lift to get me up there. It's really fun. The bank job we're doing downtown that Dennis mentioned is really fun, because they have, if you've been here for a little bit, they have these lifts that they take you around. So they take me all over that building on these big lifts, and it's really fun. It's really fun. And you can explore everything. This is an example of the deck. The decks are in not good condition. They're all built differently. They've been fixed in various ways over the years. And so we couldn't come up with one universal fix unless we would tear them all off and build them new. So what we did was we made a $2,500 allowance per deck to repair it. You know, and that was in the bid. Because we have issues like this that, you know, that just can't be like that. There's gonna be a failure. Water is getting in there all the time, it's creating decay, and this will eventually fail and people will get hurt. Well, this is one of my favorite ones. You can see there's actually, in this area right here, that's actually a hole back into the building. This is so big that, you know, squirrels can, I bet you there's squirrels in there. There's birds in there. I mean, this is just a huge, you can see right way up into the building. And then all this fascia here is completely decayed because, again, they ran the wood right down on top of the roof, and so the water comes down along here and is absorbed right up into this fascia board, or actually rake, and it's just destroyed. There's another example of why you don't put wood down on concrete. The edge, that's actually the edge that you're looking at. This is the edge. That's how thin it is. And the whole board is pulling away and down. And right adjacent to it is curb. They're all like this. So walk around the buildings and look down on all these buildings and you will see examples of this pretty much everywhere you look. Some sills, I know the windows are all being replaced. Obviously this is one that hasn't been replaced yet. The issue on this one, I didn't bring the picture of it, but this one, there's actually, I think the problem with this one was that the sprinklers were splashing on it, the irrigation system. I think that's why that one was so shot. There's also issues around the foundation where there are various cracks and openings. There's lots of these examples if you walk around the buildings that you will see. And this allows, clearly, water gets down in there, runs down the wall. There's a cement wall behind this. Okay, this is a below grade, right here is below grade, but that moisture is going somewhere. That moisture is going down that concrete wall and it's migrating into the building. Because in the summertime, when you have air conditioning on in your units, the moisture I spoke of before, the vapor moisture that in the winter that goes from inside outside, in the summertime it goes the other way if you're using a humidifier or dehumidifier air conditioning, because there's less moisture inside, so the moisture on the outside is going to try to get to it just naturally. And so it's trying to flow into these areas, and when it hits cold side vapor barrier now is the inside of the wall, it's also going to condense and cause decay. Or it just runs in just like this. I mean, the water's just driven right into there. Yeah, this is another nice one too. This is, you look right up in here in this corner, these boards, they're so decayed, they're just falling apart. There's like nothing left there. I couldn't get up to it, but I could grab that with my hand and just pull it out. And when wood is like this condition, and I've seen a lot of it in other projects, you know, you have to fix it, because if you don't fix it, it's only going to get worse, it's going to get more expensive, because the structure would become compromised. So